Warner Bros. Definitely one of the companies that exists. That's really all I have to say about Warner Brothers. Still though, Warner Brothers is one of the biggest companies of all time because of the sheer amount of quantity of properties that they own. They own stuff like DC, Mortal Kombat, Harry Potter, Cartoon Network. And you might notice a trend with these things. All of these are in Fortnite. Yes, Adventure Time is eventually coming to Fortnite. That's a little leak that came out recently. And that leak is the reason I decided to make this video, because even though Fortnite and Warner Brothers don't have the worst relationship ever, unlike Fortnite and Nintendo, it's not exactly all sunshine and rainbows over there. We went from getting a bunch of Warner Bros. Collabs to getting none, back to getting a bunch. Gonna go over some history and also just explain what's going on between Fortnite and Warner Brothers and why they seem to have such an interesting dynamic. Before we get into this, please like and subscribe. If we hit 25k by 2026, I'll get a low taper fade. That sub goal is getting more and more unrealistic as the days go by. Also follow me on Twitter and use code LilSmurf in the Fortnite item shop. That's enough promotion. Let's go. So for starters, the very first Warner Brothers collab was a collab with Batman. Shocker, their most popular superhero was their first collab. Who could have thunk? Real talk though, this was a very good collab. They rethemed Tilted Towers to be Gotham City and added a Batarang and a Batglider. These mythics were pretty fun and I did like them a lot. It also came with two skins, those being Batman and Catwoman. This was a fantastic collab. And it also happened to be the peak. Yeah, sadly, this was the last Warner Bros. Collab to incorporate some sort of gameplay elements. Or when I say Warner Brothers, I'm mainly saying DC. Because Warner Brothers did absolutely nothing else with anything except DC. And they barely did anything else with DC, mainly only adding skins. I'll admit, the skins that we got were pretty high quality and I did enjoy them. However, it's just skins. As cool as it is to have some skins, it's locked behind a paywall, so a majority of the content you're not going to be able to access. And a lot of the superheroes that they did add have some crazy potential for some mythics, like Superman. We could have had a flight or some laser eyes or something like that. Aquaman, we could have gotten his trident. There was so much potential for mythics, and yet they just completely ignored it, and they also completely ignored their other franchises. Literally any Cartoon Network show, Harry Potter, you could have made $1 bajillion off of that, but they decided not to do that. With that being said, we did get a lot of skins like Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Beast Boy, Starfire, Raven, and even though we weren't getting any real gameplay content, it seemed that Fortnite and DC had a pretty strong future going forward. You see, kids, this is the part where they didn't have a strong future going forward. You learned comedy. On October 20th, 2022, Fortnite released the Black Adam skin into the item shop, and this was just another DC skin made to promote his new movie. Which I don't know why they would want to promote that movie. Ugh. Movie aside, the skin was fine. It was basically just The Rock, but in a bad superhero suit. It wasn't anything crazy. However, little did we know that this would be the last DC skin that Warner Bros. Added to Fortnite. But why is this? Oh, that's why. Multiversus. That's probably the first time you've heard this name in years. For those of you who don't remember, which why would you? Multiversus was a platform fighter that featured many popular Warner Brothers characters. You had fighters of the likes of Steven Universe, Superman, Batman, Bugs Bunny, Shaggy, LeBron James. And this game initially had a lot of hype behind it, but why was that? For one, there was a severe lack of platform fighters at the time because Smash Ultimate recently just ended. For those who don't know what Smash Ultimate is, yes you do. It was basically the go-to platform fighter. It was getting new characters constantly and was basically the ultimate gaming crossover.
Say that again?
There have been attempts to copy its success in the past, but all of them fizzled out because they had a lot of issues with them that just did not work that well. Not to mention the fact that these all basically launched around the same time that Smash titles did, so basically it was a no-brainer. Were you going to pick up Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl or Smash Bros? However, with Smash Ultimate adding its final character, there was a time open for a bunch of platform fighters to come in, and in came Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2. It flopped just as hard, if not harder, than Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 1, and with that being said, this is probably the first time you've ever heard of those games in your entire life. And came Multiversus, which was a heavy hitter. Not only did it nail the crossover aspect, because this is also a very big crossover with a bunch of Warner Bros. Characters, it also nailed the gameplay pretty solidly. It got the proper treatment, it was fast-paced, all the characters had unique movesets with a bunch of references to their movies and shows. It was essentially the Smash for movies, and since there was no new Smash Bros. At the time, Multiversus had the perfect time to take over, and take over it did. The game sold 20 million Founders Packs, which is insane, and it had millions upon millions of players. But what does any of this have to do with Fortnite? Well, with Multiversus being as big as a success as it was, they didn't really see a need to put their characters into Fortnite anymore, because if they wanted to promote a new movie, they could just put them in Multiversus and it would get just as much, if not more, eyes on the movie than Fortnite would. So as a result, Multiversus not only cut ties with Fortnite, but basically every other company that they were doing collabs with, so they could focus all of their money onto Multiversus. They shut down the game after a couple months. Yeah, for some reason, instead of developing while the beta was out and then eventually releasing the full game, they just decided to shut down the beta for like a year, which made absolutely no sense. It's not like the game was completely dying or anything, it still had a pretty dedicated player base. But nope, all of a sudden they're gonna shut it down, but they said it would come back in 2024, so people were waiting and waiting and waiting. And it's not like Fortnite was getting any collabs, there was nothing, because Warner Bros. Was so focused on working on Multiversus that they just didn't want to do it. I understand that you want to pour some resources into your game, but like, come on, you couldn't have done a couple of collabs? But then, in 2024, it released, and yikes. Yeah, when Multiversus relaunched, it relaunched with some horrible reception. They slowed down the game and made the physics way more clunky and weird for some reason. You know, there was no one really complaining about the fact that the game was too fast-paced. If anything, that was a praise for the game, but for some reason they decided to slow the gameplay down because they wanted to balance some characters, but that just made the whole experience so much more worse. And so it got a couple of updates, but then all of a sudden we got, out of the blue, an announcement that a new Batman and Harley Quinn skin would be coming to the game. This was huge. Fortnite hadn't gotten a DC collab in years, so this was crazy. But then, a couple days later, it was announced that Multiversus was shutting down. A little bit off topic, but literally the update that they sent out before they announced it was shutting down, they fixed the main problem that people had with the game and decided to speed up the combat and make it way more intuitive and fresh. Stupid choices aside, it was announced that Multiversus was no longer going to be updated. So as a result, we have gotten two new collabs, the Batman and Harley Quinn skin and the Mortal Kombat collab, which was amazing and was the first official non-DC Fortnite collab. And like I said at the beginning of the video, it was leaked that Adventure Time was going to be coming with a skin for Jake, Princess Bubblegum, Marceline, and Jake. So yeah, that's really all I wanted to say. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. Once again, 25k by 2026 for Low Taper Fade. In conclusion, blame Multiversus. With that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out. Flint and Steel, chicken jockey, I am Steve.